What is up, guys? This is Samuel here. This is my first YouTube video. I'm still trying to figure out just how to get my setup going. There's certain things that are kind of not ideal, but I'm going to work through it. And you can see my face while I'm talking so you don't fall asleep. Because sometimes I talk and I hear myself and I feel drowsy. So, with that being said, let us talk about something interesting. Now, I deal exclusively with the ACT. I've been tutoring for about 6 years now. And this is something that is extremely important to perform well on the ACT or the SAT. And that is what we can call a number sense. So, that begs the question, what is it? What is a number sense? Well, you may have heard of a term that is similar to it called a word sense, and that is something I may address in a future YouTube video. But a number sense, just like a word sense, but in different ways, they both encompass a certain intuition. With the former, it deals with an intuition with how words come together, with how certain phrases align with each other. And that intuition is developed with a lot of reading. It just becomes, just internalized from a lot of reading. It's subconscious. And in like manner, a number sense encompasses an intuition or an ability to work with numbers very well, to be able to compute arithmetic very quickly. That should almost go without saying. But yes, to be comfortable with numbers, and then we can layer that up to, we can go up a step to abstract numbers, and that basically brings us into the realm of algebra. So we'll talk about these things, but let's start with number sense and why it is important. So why is number sense important? Well, on the ACT and SAT, or any standardized test for the matter, there's a time constraint. And when you're spending a lot of time on the most basic things, such as computation, that can really impede you, not only time-wise, but brain-wise. You really want to free up space to be able to do more calculation-intensive problems or just simply more difficult problems. And if you are struggling to do basic math, 4 times 5, and you have to put that in your calculator, that can really add up. Okay? So that really brings us to this tip, and that is that you should memorize the times table. Memorizing the times table sounds comical, and it kind of is. But I've worked with students who really struggled with this, and this is not to shame anyone who may listen, but to stress the importance of having that foundation, and the foundation begins with the times table. Of course, there's addition, subtraction, but I'm assuming you know how to add 1 and 1 together. So memorize the times table. Don't just have it somewhat known. If I ask you what 12 times 11 is, you should know that that's 132. Okay, so you may have seen this before. This is a 12 by 12 grid. You should know everything through 12 times 12. Okay, you don't necessarily have to know what 13 times 12 is. Actually, the more you know, the better. But yeah, to have this internalized is key. And to a lot of you who may listen, no one may end up listening to this video, and I'm okay with that. But to the hypothetical audience that knows this and guffaws, that's okay. There's someone who may not understand the importance of this. I have to drive it home. It's tedious, but it's necessary. It's a necessary evil. You want to do well in the ACT math, have this out of the way. Make sure you memorize it. Okay? That brings us to the next part. So once you understand numbers as they stand in the literal sense, now you get into the abstract world. Okay? And that really brings us to algebraic sense. What is that? Very similar. But now we're dealing with how things are grouped together. Okay, so there's a significant amount of questions that deals exclusively with basically this algebraic sense. How are you able to group like terms together? So let's look at an example problem. Actually, before we do so, let's talk about this. So a sign that a student has a very good algebraic sense is that the said student does not have to write every single step out, which is something that your math teachers have probably driven home to you through your K through 12, presumably 12. I mean, whatever grade level you're at, education, and that is to write every step. Don't do that. Get good enough, okay? Get good enough with your algebra such that you'll be able to visualize how things are grouped together, and you don't necessarily have to write out every step. Okay, the brain is a very fluid thing. You don't have to think very, choppily. That's a word. Don't be choppy. Be fluid. That's really what I'm trying to drive home here. Okay, so don't write every step. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't be sloppy. I don't want you to be erroneous and get into a situation where you're making silly mistakes because you're skipping steps. That's not what I'm saying. But don't be tautological. Okay, so in this situation, we're asked to solve for x. Okay, and this should be relatively straightforward. But what I really want to convey is the importance of being able to write out each step efficiently. Okay, so I skipped a few steps here. Okay, so what I did in this first step is I wrote out the equation such that I'm going from left to right. I'm using the order of operations, and I grouped 5x and 20x together. Okay, now that minus 20x comes from the distribution of 4 with the quantity 5x plus 2. So yeah, this is pretty straightforward, but look at how I group these things together. I mean, honestly, if I were to actually solve this, I wouldn't write out each step like this. And so that's really what I'm talking about. But being able to group like terms is an important facet of algebraic sense. The more you practice that, the more you'll be able to do it in your head. Okay? This is so shoddy, and I apologize for the bad formatting, but this just kind of brings it to another level of complexity, slightly more difficult, but still pretty straightforward. We're given the equation 5x cubed plus 2x squared minus 3x plus 7 equals that right-hand side, okay? Next step, what do? I group the like terms together. Now, one thing with algebra is that the convention is that we group things from the highest degree term, which is x cubed, to the lowest degree term, which in this case is just the constant that ends up being 9. Okay, so look at how I group these things together. Again, when you group those like terms together, it becomes very fluid. You practice enough to where you may not even have to write these steps out. This is advice that is unconventional. It's possibly dangerous, but that's the risk I'm willing to take. The first risk being that no one may click on this video, but that's a risk worth taking. So hopefully you enjoyed this. If you enjoyed it, do the obvious of liking and following, and I'm going to continue to churn out content that I think is practical. But this is one of the basic things that I had to get out of the way.